Ferrari has been dominating the early portions of this 2025 WEC season, having swept the podium in the first round and then finished on the top step in the second round. Now, it may surprise some of you Formula One fans out there to hear, but Alpine, whose F1 program is currently in turmoil, emerged as a potential dark horse at the previous round, with the 36 car of Schumacher, Makowiecki, and Gounon finishing on the third step of the podium. So, as we enter this 6-hour endurance classic around Spa, Alpine is looking to punch above their weight and beat the scarlet red Ferraris to the top step of the podium. Former Formula One driver Mick Schumacher, who, you guessed it, is son of former world champion Michael Schumacher, will be taking part in qualifying aboard this number 36 car. As he peels out of the pit box to join this Hyperpulse session, he has already guaranteed his spot in the top 10 with his lap in the previous session. But as he joins the track, we can listen to how low grip the tires are on this Alpine. If you don't follow sports car racing, that's one of the big differences with Formula One, is that they actually don't have tire warmers. So they have to use a lot of energy and effort to put temperature into these tires. And in fact, as Mick Schumacher makes his way through the chicane, he will actually continue weaving as he goes down the front straight and use a full second lap to generate enough heat in these tires. So finally, as he makes his way into the chicane for the second time, he will stay tight to the right-hand side to open up the exit through this left-hander as he makes his way onto the front straight and slams the throttle to start his hyper-pole lap around Spa. As he brakes as late as possible into La Source, the exit of this corner is critical because it leads down the hill into Eau Rouge and then Raidillon and down the long Kemmel Straight. Down the hill into Eau Rouge, let's try to listen to hear if he is flat. Maybe a slight lift, I'm not sure, as he goes over the top of the hill, but he is into 7th gear down the Kemmel Straight. Now, it's important to mention that the track has been resurfaced since the race last year. So, although pole was a 203, it's going to take probably a 159 to claim pole this year. So as he makes his way into this fast right-hander, Mick Schumacher is absolutely on the limit in this Alpine, trying to extract every ounce of performance from this A424. Through this long right-hander, and the car always wants to understeer as you make your way quickly back to the right-hand side into No Name. Schumacher a little bit wide from the apex, but uses all of the road on the exit. Now I look back, I said pole would be about a 159 here as we're through Pouhon, such a fast corner, and the car twitching on entering through the mid-corner. But I looked back and I saw the Porsche 919 Tribute did a 141 around Spa-Francorchamps, if you believe it. Through Piff Paff though, Mick Schumacher slightly wide of the apex to the right-hander and then all over the apex curve on the left-hander as he hustles the car back to the left. Obviously, that Porsche 919 Tribute record was not representative of an LMP1 car. I looked back, 2017 I think was the fastest year for LMP1. They were a 154. So we're obviously still a bit off that with this generation of hypercar and with the resurfacing, but still incredibly, incredibly fast. And most importantly, incredible racing as Schumacher, I think, is he flat through Blanchiment, heads into the final corner and brakes as late as possible into the chicane, clips the apex on the right, perfectly clips the apex on the left as well, and squeezes the throttle and minimizes his distance to the start-finish line as he keeps it tight to the right-hand side and sets a 2-minute, 0.3 second lap. So, as Mick Schumacher makes his way back into the pit lane and gets a high five from his crew, we can see that lap was good enough for P6 on the grid. But if we look to the front of the grid, we can see a Ferrari lockout of the first 3 positions. So, as Mick Schumacher gets out of the car, he knows it will take something special from he and his teammates to overtake those prancing horses. Although Schumacher qualified yesterday, it is Makowiecki who is starting this number 36 Alpine alongside the number 12 Cadillac Hypercar. And although those Ferraris were quick in qualifying, the race is obviously another story. And with 6 hours on the clock, absolutely anything can happen. So you absolutely cannot count your chickens before they hatch in endurance racing. The field tentatively makes their way through the chicane with the nervous anticipation building for that green flag to drop. They line up 2 by 2 on the front straight, and everyone is waiting for that green flag. Finally, it drops, and the race is underway, and they charge into one of the tightest and trickiest first corners in all of motorsport as the Ferraris go side by side for first and second. Makowiecki is up on the curb on the exit. That compromises his run out of the corner, but fortunately, he has gotten past the Cadillac for 5th position as he closes in on the French 9X8 Hypercar through Raidillon for the first time, and he is all over the curb, wasting absolutely no time as he closes in on the now winged 9X8 Hypercar out front. He closes in down this long straight. We can see this Alpine has great top-end speed, looks around the outside, but settles in behind the 94 car. It's always important to make up positions on the first lap, but it is less important in hypercar racing. There is 6 hours on the clock. You don't have to be too aggressive on this first lap. We can look up front and see that Hansen in that yellow number 83 Ferrari has actually fallen behind the number 51 car, which qualified in 3rd. Through no name, Hansen's a little bit wide and actually hounding the back of that 51 factory Ferrari. While things often settle down into a rhythm through the first lap, the real chaos begins when they first make their way through traffic. And we can see now 15 minutes into the race, they will start encountering their first LMGT3 traffic. And sure enough, we can see this huge gaggle of LMGT3 traffic. At the start of the race, it's the gentleman drivers who are aboard these LMGT3 cars, and sometimes that makes it a little bit more awkward as the 94 car tries to find its way around one of the McLarens. They look around the outside of that United Autosports McLaren as the Alpine gets a little wiggle on the exit and closes in on the 9X8. The 94 gets a good exit though and pulls a gap on the 36 car as they weave their way into Blanchiment. This straightaway is always tricky because it weaves from side to side. There's no real racing line, so to speak, so it's always a little bit awkward. Into the chicane, they catch traffic. The Ferrari falls in behind the Porsche, so does the 9X8, but Makowiecki brakes late around the outside as he squeezes past the 94 car up into 4th position and closes in on Phil Hansen in the 83, who gets a little wiggle on the exit as he struggles to put the power down in that Ferrari 499P. Makowiecki looks up the inside just to let Hansen know he is there. Hansen is wide through the apex of the La Source hairpin as he makes his way past that Aston Martin LMGT3 with the Alpine following his tracks. Hansen taps the brakes as he makes his way into Eau Rouge to make sure that he doesn't have to hit the brakes on the exit, which would compromise his run and hand the position to this 36 Alpine. Managing traffic, especially through Eau Rouge, is so critical. You want to time the traffic just perfectly, because if you hit it at the wrong time, that can be just detrimental to your race. As they close in on that 51 car through traffic as well, it is now a 3-way battle for 2nd position in this race. Hansen is trying to find that position back that he lost earlier on, and he looks around the outside, actually, of his stablemate, but isn't quite able to execute the move as the Alpine looks up the inside of Hansen, who tried that slightly audacious maneuver. Through no name, we can see that Aston Martin GT3 is slightly wide. Hansen squeezes his way past as they head into this fast double left-hander. Now, this corner especially really exaggerates the difference between the hypercars and the LMGT3s, and we can see that Ferrari is catching traffic through the exit. Hansen has to hit the brakes, nearly makes contact with the BMW, and the 36 tries to find its way around. Makowiecki is up the inside of the Ferrari, who hangs it tough around the outside. They are side by side through the right-hander, but the Ferrari just pokes a nose ahead on the exit of that left-hander and squeezes his way past one of the LMGT3 Ferraris. Makowiecki has to wait till the exit before he squeezes the throttle and makes his way past that AF Corsa LMGT3 car. They once again make their way onto this long straight into Blanchiment as we can see this dramatic speed differential between the hypercars and the LMGT3s. And I want you to listen, because Makowiecki is backing off the throttle, building a big gap as we just talked about, so he doesn't get compromised on the exit. Those 2 Ferraris were caught up though behind that Ford GT3, and the Alpine squeezes its way past into this left-right chicane. This Mustang driver not knowing if they should stay right or left, as we can see those 3 cars absolutely nose to tail on the exit. Makowiecki looks around the outside into La Source, but switches on the Ferrari, looks up the inside. Makowiecki is through up into 3rd position as he gives the 83 a little hip check on the exit. This 36 accelerates really quickly, actually much better than the Ferrari 499 it seems, and closes in on that 51 car as they head into Eau Rouge. Through Blanchiment, Makowiecki stays close to this number 51 Ferrari, and proves what I was saying earlier in this video, that this Alpine is legitimately a dark horse in contention for race victories. Now, although it's not as fast as a Ferrari on one lap qualifying, this 36 car definitely has speed over the course of the stint, and the Ferrari maybe struggles a bit more with tire wear than this 36 Alpine. Makowiecki closes in once again through the La Source hairpin, and as he dances on the throttle, actually closes in once again on the Ferrari under acceleration. We can see the Ferrari stays in the middle of the road. Makowiecki moves to the right-hand side. They are now side by side into Eau Rouge. The Ferrari yields through the first apex as Makowiecki claims second place for the French Racing Blue, number 36 Alpine. But this 51 car isn't giving up just yet, and we see that Ferrari is fast in a straight line, but not able to close in enough to make a move into Le Combe. Through this chicane, the Alpine consolidates its position and stays ahead of this 51 car through the fast right-hander. But as we look back from the Alpine, we can see those Ferraris are not going anywhere, and in fact they have a BMW in the 94 car for company as well. I know the WEC gets a lot of complaints about the BOP, but I just have to say, to be now an hour into the race and have such close racing for these hypercar brands shows that it's really not as far off as it seems, as the 51 is now close to the number 36 Alpine, who looks up the inside of the BMW but thinks better of it as the BMW goes in front. The Ferrari goes around the outside though, and they are 3 wide, but the Alpine is hanging tough around the outside. We can see that front wheel just barely ahead, with Makowiecki now on the inside line and able to hold off the number 51 car of James Calado as the Alpine squeezes past the Mercedes through Stavelot. Makowiecki just able to hold on to second position by the skin of his teeth. With 2 hours of the race complete, we can see that this Alpine is not only staying in second, but actually catching up to the race-leading number 50 Ferrari of Nicholas Nielsen. Through Piff-Paff, Makowiecki closes in on this number 50 car, who seems to be just struggling ever so slightly with his tires. Into Campus Corner, and Nielsen has caught LMGT3 traffic in the shape of a Porsche. He clips the apex, using all of the road on the exit as well, but the 36 is closing in on this race-leading Ferrari. If they play their cards right, Alpine has a legitimate chance to win this race as the Ferrari clips some dust. And actually, Makowiecki had to back out of it. I think he got dust inside the cockpit too. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before, that another car kicks up dust which gets in the cockpit of the car trailing behind. But anyways, with 3.5 hours of the race remaining, Makowiecki makes his way into the pit lane after a frankly phenomenal 2.5 hours of racing. With team and tires lined up on the right, Makowiecki hits his marks and jumps out of the car to hand over to teammate Jules Gounon, who joined Alpine at the start of this season after a stint as a Mercedes factory driver. And I actually forgot to mention during his stint, but Makowiecki is also new to Alpine as of this season, having come over from Porsche's Hypercar factory program. So a lot of experienced sports car veterans in this number 36 Alpine. With Gounon buckled in and ready to go, the team will not be taking tires, instead electing to double stint them as Gounon pulls out of his pit box and refires the car back on track. As always, this outlap is absolutely critical because with him on hot tires, he has a chance to undercut the Ferrari that is still out on track. So Gounon is going to be pushing as hard as possible, and through Eau Rouge, there's a little lift. The car is heavy on fuel, but he is hustling down the Kemmel Straight as he tries to jump ahead of that number 50 Ferrari. Across the start-finish line he goes to complete his outlap, and it will be close on the pit lane exit between the 36 car and the number 50 Ferrari. We can look at the monitor on the right and see it says white flag. There is a car exiting the pit lane, and indeed it is the number 50 Ferrari. Gounon pulls to the right-hand side with the Ferrari defending to the left, but it was futile as the 36 car breezes past into Eau Rouge and over Raidillon. The 36 car is clearly ahead of that number 50 Ferrari, which is using the GT3s to catch a draft and try to stay close to this number 36 car. Down the Kemmel Straight, Gounon sweeps past another GT3 and hits the brakes hard as he makes his way into Le Combe. That Ferrari staying close behind this number 36 car. With the stint continuing, Gounon continued to lead, but As the virtual safety car comes out, with just over 2 hours remaining in the race, he pulls to the right and into pit lane. And we can see that number 50 Ferrari is still tantalizingly close to the rear of this Alpine. So, as Gounon pulls into his pit box, he will hand over to the closer, Mick Schumacher. With Schumacher all buckled in, the team will be putting on a fresh set of medium tires. Now, the teams do have an option to do medium, hard, or soft, but this isn't like Formula 1 where they have to use multiple compounds of tire. They can just choose whatever tires they think will be fastest over the course of a race. As we see Schumacher exiting the pit lane, we saw just ahead the rear end of that number 50 Ferrari. You can see it once again just there. That Ferrari was able to jump ahead of this 36 Alpine in the pit lane. And indeed, the other 51 car was also able to jump ahead. So as they weave side to side to put temperature in these medium tires, Schumacher is in third position, directly behind these two Ferraris. The irony is also not lost on me that it's Schumacher trying to get ahead of two Ferraris, the team that his dad won 5 World Drivers' Championships with in Formula 1. After a long hold, the 51 Ferrari finally accelerates into the final chicane. As they make their way through this right-left sequence, that 51 car is able to pull a slight gap on the exit and consolidate that first position in Hypercar category as Schumacher got a little slide on the exit and tries to warm his tires. Still not quite enough temperature in them to take the fight to Ferrari. And he is wide through the La Source hairpin as well, struggling on these cold tires. That's the big advantage that Ferrari has. But as the stint continues, Schumacher was able to stay close to this Ferrari, and they have now caught LMGT3 traffic. Pierre Guidi is held up on the exit, and Schumacher has a massive run going onto the Kemmel Straight. He closes in on that 51 car, which is weaving past that McLaren. Now, Schumacher fully in the draft of that Ferrari, looks around the outside, but Pierre Guidi brakes as late as possible, squeezing his way past and ahead the 36 Alpine of Mick Schumacher, who was temporarily ahead of that Ferrari, but Pierre Guidi took it incredibly deep in the braking zone to reclaim that position. Into this long right-hander. The car always wants to understeer, and that Ferrari is just ever so slightly pulling away as the two close in on yet more GT3 traffic. But I want you to take a glance at Mick Schumacher's mirror, because that is the Belgian-colored number 20 BMW Hypercar. And with it being a home race for that car, you know they are desperate for a good result. But Pierre Guidi is held up on the exit by another Corvette, and Schumacher is still closing in on this 51 car. Through Piff Paff, we can see that Pierre Guidi is on the limit in his Ferrari and kicks up dust on the apex curb, with Mick Schumacher following suit, but the Ferrari is wide on the exit. Schumacher is now tantalizingly close to that Ferrari, gets a better run coming out of the corner, and makes his way past into Stavelot. But with these two going side by side, the BMW just behind, which is on soft tires, has a run coming out of the corner. Now that BMW is also going to look for a way past and get squeezed off the track, going 2 wheels in the dirt, but able to squeeze past Pierre Guidi in the 51 Ferrari, who runs wide through the exit of Blanchiment. You don't want to go too far off there, and settles into 4th position behind this number 20 BMW and the number 36 Alpine, which is now in 2nd place. But Robin Frijns on his soft tires is not giving up. And with Schumacher finding traffic on the exit of Stavelot, Frijns is going to look for a way past into Blanchiment. But the 51 Ferrari is just behind as we can see them weaving their way through traffic. The Ferrari leaves a big gap with the two cars caught up behind a GT3. Pierre Guidi has a run into the chicane, goes around the BMW and brakes late around the Alpine as well, squeezing his way past up into 2nd place. Schumacher nearly makes contact with the Ferrari, which is able to squeeze past and makes room for the 20 BMW, who gets a better run off the corner. The Alpine now shuffled back to 4th position as the BMW looks to go for 2nd around the outside. He brakes late and defends his position from the Alpine, consolidating 3rd place as the Ferrari of Pierre Guidi stays ahead. but the BMW looks around the outside and they make contact. The Ferrari pushing the BMW close to the wall, but the BMW not giving up. Neither is the Ferrari. They go side by side through Raidillon, with the Ferrari shortcutting the course in an effort to stay ahead of this number 20 BMW. But Frins is not giving up either. He is trapped behind that LMGT3 car, which compromises his run down the straight as he has to settle in behind that number 51 Ferrari. Absolutely breathless racing here in Hypercar as Schumacher is still hounding these two, looking for a way past. I have to say, this Hypercar racing as Schumacher looks around the outside of Frins is absolutely incredible. And I just want to say how lucky we are to have so many incredible drivers in this series. I feel like Formula One casts off drivers before they're ready to be done. But I just love that they're able to find a home here in sports car racing. Drivers like Schumacher, Magnussen, Giovinazzi, how awesome is it to have them racing against the best sports car drivers in the world? And we can just see there into Piff Path that it was decided that the Ferrari did hold the position by shortcutting the course, so Pierre Guidi pulled to the side to allow Frins to make his way past. With just over an hour and a half remaining, there is some really interesting strategy that's going to play out in this race. That's because the entire field pitted with just over 2 hours remaining. But these hypercars shouldn't be able to do more than about 55, maybe 58 minutes on a full tank of fuel. So teams will need a full pit stop and then just a splash of fuel. And the Alpine team, with all of that intense battling going on in front of them, decide that they're better off having a shorter initial pit stop because it will take less fuel to fill their tank, which will then put them ahead of the field when the first pit sequence shakes out. And by being ahead of the field, they can jump ahead of their competition, have a clean track in front of them, run fast laps, and hopefully build enough of a gap that their second, slower pit stop will still put them out ahead of the rest of the field. Now, I didn't mention it, but during that pit stop, they also took 2 fresh right side tires. They choose just to do right side tires because the tire changers are right there on the right hand side. They don't need to run around the car, so they can change them very quickly. Obviously, you'd rather have 4 fresh tires, but 2 is better than none, and that is what the team chose to do during that pit stop. So after a full stint of Schumacher belting out fast lap after fast lap, it is time for him to make his final pit stop and this whole pit sequence to unwind. As I mentioned, their previous pit stop was faster, which puts them in first position now, but this final pit stop will be longer than the rest of the competition. So as the rest of the field pits, we will be able to see if this strategy has paid off. Into his pit box he goes, and it will be just fuel, no tires for Mick Schumacher. Mick is absolutely eye of the tiger during this pit stop and shrugs off his water bottle. He doesn't need to refuel himself. The car is good enough, and he is ready to go. Full focus for the next 30 minutes with the race win on the line for Alpine. As he makes his way down the Kemmel Straight, we can look out front and see that just ahead is the number 7 Toyota of Nick de Vries. Now, de Vries is definitely low on fuel and will certainly owe us a pit stop before the end of the race. But if we look just ahead as Schumacher breaks into the chicane, we can see that there is the 51 Ferrari, who we thought would be much further ahead, but we also thought should owe us another pit stop. So this tells us that 51 car has been saving fuel, and they might just be able to make it to the end without making another pit stop. So this creates a really interesting strategy where Schumacher is going to have to push that number 51 Ferrari ahead to try to either, 1, run him out of fuel, or make his way past on track for second position. So through Eau Rouge and over Raidillon, Schumacher needs to push as hard as possible to get past this Toyota of de Vries and put pressure on the number 51 car to either run him out of fuel or make his way past on track. Into Lecombe, Schumacher closes in on that Toyota, but this won't be easy work for Schumacher either because he's on really old medium tires, so he can't push quite as hard as he wants to either. into Bruxelles, and they have caught yet more LMGT3 traffic. As we can see, Schumacher gets a snap of oversteer on the entry and on the exit as well. He is pushing this Alpine and these tires to their absolute limit, but the Toyota is caught behind that Mercedes once again. Schumacher looks around the outside to make his way past, but we can see a full course yellow is about to come out. He needs to make his way past before that gets to zero. He does so into Pouin and slams on the brakes to get down to the speed limit, creating a plume of smoke as he locked up his tires in doing so. An incredible move for Schumacher to get ahead into Pouin. That is not easy to do, especially in these hypercars. But while he has gotten ahead of the Toyota, this full course yellow is bad news for Schumacher because that Ferrari ahead, as we mentioned, is running low on fuel, and every minute they have behind this full course yellow will give that Ferrari a chance to make it to the end without making a pit stop. But on board this Toyota, we can see that the full course yellow is about to end, and De Vries is ready to pounce on the Alpine. As it goes green, De Vries is hard on the throttle and is pushed over into the grass by Mick Schumacher. De Vries returns the favor, pushing Schumacher off the road as well, but Schumacher is able to find his way past once again with the Porsche opting out of Blanchiment, allowing the 36 car to pass, and Schumacher now once again ahead of De Vries, who had lightning reflexes on that full course yellow restart. We saw that last year at Imola, and De Vries proving once again that he is the master at those full course yellow restarts. Although Schumacher is ahead and can begin chasing down the Ferraris once again, that battling allowed the Ferraris to build a crucial gap on this number 36 car. Finally, with just over a minute remaining in the race, Schumacher is closing in on the 51 of Pierre Guidi. But as they make their way into the chicane, we can see that Ferrari stays to the left, does not enter the pit lane, and will be able to make it to the end on fuel. So as they cross the start-finish line, Schumacher has to push to try to overtake this Ferrari on track for second position. Through La Source for the final time, and the Ferrari is able to easily make it past that GT3 before Eau Rouge. One additional chance for traffic, not able to be seized by Schumacher. We can hear Schumacher lift off early through Eau Rouge as he goes over Radillon. That Lexus out front actually shortcuts the track as Schumacher makes his way past down the Kemmel Straight. Once again closing in on LMGT3 traffic, but he has easily passed the first form Porsche and into Les Combes. He uses all of the road on the entry, clipping that apex curb, clipping the other apex curb as well, absolutely thrashing this Alpine. But his tires are so much older than that Ferrari's out front. Even though Pierre Guidi is saving a huge amount of fuel right now, this Alpine just isn't that much quicker on these old tires. Once again on the exit, we see a little kick of oversteer. Schumacher doing everything in his power to close in on this 51 car. Through Pouin, we can see just how precise Schumacher is in this car. It's a beautiful thing to watch. A hypercar around Spa-Francorchamps, the blue Alpine versus the red Ferrari. What an incredible time to be a sports car fan, as Schumacher gets a kick of oversteer on the exit of Piff Path. Through Stavelot for the final time, and this is the final long straight on the lap. So if the Ferrari is going to run out of fuel, it has to happen very, very soon. Otherwise, this Alpine crew will have to settle for third position. Through Blanchiment, a little lift for Schumacher as he makes his way past that Aston Martin LMGT3 and into the chicane. The Ferrari is just too far ahead of Schumacher. As they exit the corner, that Ferrari is maybe a little bit slow on the exit, but we can see the fireworks illuminating the start-finish straight as Ferrari claims 1-2, with Schumacher giving a big thumbs up to his pit crew on the pit wall, claiming another podium for Alpine. That is 2 in a row for this 36 crew. Now, although the Alpine crossed the line in third position, there was still a little question mark over whether or not Ferrari would have to serve a penalty for this pit lane incident that took place earlier in the race. During the safety car, the two Ferraris entered the pit lane nose to tail, with the 50 car just ahead of the 51. But the 50's pit box is behind the 51, so if the 50 were to pit first, that would block the 51 car from entering their pit stall. So the 50 car pulled to the right-hand side in the pit lane, allowing the 50 car to pass. The officials ended up not taking any further action on this incident, so I didn't include it in the video, but I just wanted to highlight that there was actually a moment where some people thought that Alpine might have actually won the race if Ferrari was given a penalty. Anyways, if you guys made it this far, I want to thank you so much for watching and so much for supporting. I really appreciate it. You probably already noticed, but this video was a bit different than my previous videos. I tried to cover a bit more of the race by covering qualifying as well. I tried to have a bit more of a conversational tone as well. I did get excited a few times during the video, obviously, but just try to make it a bit more conversational, a bit more relaxed, a bit more like we're just friends watching a race together. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you guys like this different style. If it worked, I might make more videos in this kind of style versus my really animated style. But anyways, I want to give a special shout out to my channel members as well. Thank you guys so much for all the love and support. I really appreciate it. I love you guys, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.